and this seems to be a disease of our time that companies don't want to say to people on the shop floor, come at the end and we'll have a coffee or something, and you can report back feedback from customers. They just seem to be.
Let me go to Claire Barrett, because Claire, listening to what Robert experienced when he was going to a situation where there was a source of commodity, and it is black and white, you either go or you don't, it makes people think, no, I'm not going to get involved in the not going to go to events like that.
Yeah, and this is what you were saying at the top of the show about how poor customer service can actually be bad for the UK economy. If you think, well, if that's the only provider I can go with, what's the impact not to be the thing? I mean, similar but related situation, complaining about the water company, for example. You can't vote for UP, you can't choose another one. You can choose another electricity company, doing so is one of the reasons that the utility system puts on when it comes to customer service. But here's another one, HMRC tax office. Now there's no alternative tax authority that we can pay our tax money to, but it does sort of make you scratch your head a bit. At a time when we need to collect every last penny of tax, the very last things that the government needs to do to fix some of these problems in the country, probably bumping the phone lines for the department that collects all the money would be a pretty good idea. There's so many people get frustrated not being able to get through to even know what they're doing. That's all about tax costs.
The thing is, we on the piece about the things you can do is to go to the secret phone, and Westcom can get lots and lots of money from the state. Westcom has, I've built and painted a boat. And that just shows you how difficult it is. And even yesterday I was talking to somebody yesterday who was on to HMRC. The first call was 48 minutes on hold, and the second call was 1 hour and 15 minutes on hold. And you would have thought that sort of thing would be sorted out, because surely they want the money. Let's go to Hazel. She was, you're in Edinburgh, Hazel. What sort of experiences have you had?
Hi, so I received a text from my bank saying that they believed that there was a credit card transaction that I hadn't undertaken myself, and could I phone them back urgently? So I phoned them back within 45 minutes after I hadn't seen the text initially. I had a sort of an initial problem, and then I had a problem partway through the process. Firstly, this is a bank I've been using for my main account and credit card for 30 years. Firstly, it didn't recognise my accent, regional accent. So I had to, it didn't even understand the difference between yes and no, because,
I completely understand how you feel. They didn't recognise the difference between yes and no.
Yeah, I think if we can put a man on the moon, I think it's enough. We can pay enough to have adequate voice recognition software. These products are available, so I really think that it should be able to cope with any British regional accent from anywhere in the UK. Anyway, that was a kind of a secondary issue. So I got through that, and I got through to a very helpful human person who said, right, you haven't committed the transaction, which it wasn't my transaction. We'll get you through to the security team, we'll get it sorted out. But at that point, unfortunately, she started to ask me, would you be interested in product X? I can't remember if it was savings or investment, I can't remember. But she started to try and sell in the product.
I thought that was all over. Let me just go to Claire Barrett. Claire, very quickly. Completely inappropriate. The financial sector is heavily regulated, and the FCA demanded that Well, Hugh, while you're there, Jane Archer very quickly is in Oxfordshire. And you, with delivery drivers, have had completely the opposite experience. What have you had?
My Tesco delivery drivers, they've always been brilliant. They're happy people, they're friendly people, they're helpful, and they're just very nice people. I can't praise them highly enough.
Well, that's wonderful. Let me go to Jenny in Redditch, because Jenny, just in the last minute of the programme, you've had a really unusual experience. Just tell me what's happened.
Yes, I have. Unfortunately, we lost our dog last August. We used to feed him on butternut box meat, which is delivered every 4 weeks. I emailed them to tell them that I had to cancel our subscription. Not only did I get a phone call offering help and giving help and loss, but also that we didn't. But the next day, we actually got a bouquet of flowers and the phone. They have been absolutely great.
Is that because they know you might get a dog in the future?
I don't know. We won't. And I think I told them because we're of an age where we're all going to some dog. I actually emailed them yesterday to tell them that I might be appearing on the programme. And we got the email back and they said that somebody from the company will be listening. So I hope they are. If they are, thank you.
Jenny, that's wonderful. Nikki in customer service has emails to say, be polite and you get more. The dog that licks does better than the dog that bites. So there you are. That's it for today. Just want to say a very big thank you to Claire Barrett, the consumer editor of BFT. Join us tomorrow for our investigation into a Taylor Swift ticket scam being run by what looks like legitimate Facebook operators who've stolen thousands from fans. Join me tomorrow just after 14 hours.
Collier News was produced in Salford by Dave James. It's a BBC Audio North production for Radio 4. Now, Darren Bett has the weather update.
Thanks very much, Ron. Good afternoon. We've got some warm sunshine around today. There is just the risk of 1 or 2 showers breaking out as well. For Northern Ireland, I think it's going to stay dry, and there should be quite sunny skies for much of the afternoon. Temperatures probably only reaching 20 degrees, mind you. Also, Western Scotland doing well with the sunshine. Temperatures could reach 22 degrees in Glasgow. A little bit cooler across the eastern side of Scotland, where the cloud is building a bit more over land, and that could lead to 1 or 2 showers. And across England and Wales, still some sunshine around as well. But we are seeing the cloud building up a little bit more as temperatures rise. That could lead to the odd shower around, particularly across the Pennines. But many places it will be dry and more sunshine, especially around coastal areas. Temperatures 20 to 22 degrees typically for England and Wales, a little bit higher than that in southeastern parts, even though there's still quite a bit of cloud around from earlier on. Overnight tonight, though, we will see the back of any showers that do develop quite quickly. It should be dry overnight, cloud coming and going. There is more cloud to come in from the Atlantic. That will arrive in some western areas by the end of the night. And temperatures by Wednesday morning around about 11 or 12 degrees. Tomorrow there will be some sunshine at times. It could be a little bit hazy actually, and as the cloud builds across the eastern side of England, perhaps even eastern Scotland, there's the risk of 1 or 2 light showers, but very few of those. It's out towards the west that we'll see thicker cloud coming into Northern Ireland, the far west of Scotland, into lots of Wales and the southwest of England. That could bring a little bit of light rain or drizzle. And these areas are going to be cooler because of that cloud, whereas further east, temperatures are likely to be a bit higher, maybe reaching 25 degrees across the southeast of England. Heading briefly into a Thursday, cloudy day with a little bit of rain. That should clear away on Friday to leave most places with some sunshine.
On BBC iPlayer.
12 months ago, a bloke breaks down, never seen again. 4 months ago, a woman just vanishes into thin air.
You don't know what's happening here.
A strange crime mystery in the Australian Alps.
People keep telling me how easy it is to disappear up here.
More people are missing. I think it's this town's colour.
I've seen things that I can't explain. They're warnings.
High country.
Hey! Hey, who's out there?
Watch on BBC iPlayer.
On 92 to 95 FM, on BBC Sounds and on your smart speaker. This is BBC Radio 4. Hello and welcome to The World at One with me, Sarah Montague. The BBC Director General says sorry over Strictly.
Of course, alongside the fun and entertainment, there will be a degree of competitiveness, hard work and a will to do well. But there are limits, and the line
executive about how the row over the dance show might affect the corporation. Also this lunchtime, MPs will vote on whether to lift the two-child benefit cap.
If the Labour Party has a moral mission, it must be to tackle child poverty. Families are struggling, kids are going to bed hungry, and their parents are put through hell to make ends meet.
We'll hear from a Labour rebel. And 60 years on, we're still learning about the life of double agent Kim Philby.
Philby is still the ghost that haunts the intelligence services. He produced a sort of massive collective nervous breakdown, which sort of lingers on even today.
Newly released archives shed light on the so-called spy among friends. The BBC News is read by Vicky Ellis.
The Director General of the BBC, Tim Davie, has apologised in the wake of negative stories about the culture and treatment of contestants on Strictly Come Dancing. He said there would be inevitably competitiveness on the show, but the line should never be crossed. Mr. Davie made the comments as the BBC released its annual report, giving details of staff salaries and the corporation's overall income. Here's our media correspondent, David Sillett.
The latest former Strictly contestant to speak out, the Paralympian Will Bailey, told BBC Breakfast he was left with a permanent injury after an incident rehearsing for the show. He says he's only being listened to now because others have come forward to talk about the pressures some contestants have come under. The BBC's Director General, speaking at the launch of this year's annual report, says he's very sorry and disappointed by what's been revealed. However, he believes new safeguarding processes with welfare chaperones in all rehearsals will address the issue, and that the show will continue as planned in the autumn. Meanwhile, the report has also revealed the details of the highest paid stars. Hugh Edwards, who has recently left the BBC after spending months off air after allegations about his private life, saw his pay actually increase by around £40,000. But the BBC's income overall fell, with around 2% of households ceasing to pay the licence fee over the last year.
The Islamist preacher Anjem Choudhury has been found guilty of directing a terrorist organisation. His trial at Woolwich Crown Court heard the banned Al-Muhajirun group was linked to a string of terrorist attacks. Prosecutors have described Choudhury as having a warped and twisted mindset. Our home and legal correspondent Dominic Keshiani reports.
For a quarter of a century, Anjem Choudhury has repeatedly avoided being charged with directing a terrorist group, even though all security chiefs had long concluded he was one of the most dangerous radicalisers in the UK. He was arrested last July after a 2.5-year investigation, which began when undercover police officers in the United States and Canada infiltrated a New York offshoot of his network. Once inside the organisation, they heard him and his supporters advocating extremism and were able to prove that the transatlantic meetings over the internet were gatherings of his banned organisation under a new name. Choudhury now faces a potential life sentence when he returns to court in a week's time.
The former Victims Commissioner for England and Wales, Deborah Baird, says police training must be improved after a report found shocking levels of violence against women. The review by the National Police Chiefs Council said the scale of the violence amounted to a national emergency. Our correspondent, Seema Kotecha, reports.
The picture the NPCC paints is an alarming one. As many as 2 million women face sexual abuse and domestic violence every year. And most of the perpetrators will be people the victims already know. The report also warns that influencers such as Andrew Tate are radicalising boys into extreme misogyny, leading to aggression and violence towards girls and younger women. The NPCC also calls on internet companies to take down extreme content which could encourage such behaviour. It says it's creating a hub to support forces with specialist knowledge and training. Officers who focus on violence against women and girls will also work with counter-terrorism teams to look at the risk of young men being radicalised. The government says it aims to halve violence against women and girls over the next decade.
A report from the National Audit Office says the government may need to actively dissuade people from travelling between Birmingham and Manchester by train. It said the Department for Transport would have to make changes because the scrapping of HS2's northern leg could reduce capacity. Last October, the then Prime Minister Rishi Sunak announced that only the London to Birmingham section of the high-speed rail link would go ahead. Here's our transport correspondent Katie Austin.
The latest version of HS2 will see the new line stop just north of Birmingham,
The HS2 trains will then travel to Manchester on the existing tracks on the crowded West Coast main line, but they're likely to carry fewer passengers than current services because stations such as Crewe can't take longer configurations of HS2 trains without adaptations. The National Audit Office says this will leave the Department for Transport needing to assess how to address capacity issues on this line. The report suggests that could include managing demand by incentivising people to travel at different times or not to travel by rail at all. Or infrastructure could be improved, which the authors say could be expensive and disruptive.
Sir Andy Murray has confirmed he will retire from tennis after the Paris Olympics. He's due to compete in the singles and in the doubles alongside Dan Evans. The Scotsman will retire as will be the UK's most successful athletes, and Sun Sports reporter Joe Curry explains.
When Sir Andy Murray said his goodbyes to Wimbledon earlier this month, many feared that would be it for the 37-year-old. But he vowed to push on to the Olympics in Paris. Confirmation today, though, that the Games will be his final competition. In a social media post, he wrote, "Arrived in Paris for my last ever tennis tournament. Competing for Team GB has been by far the most memorable weeks of my career, and I'm extremely proud to get to do it for the final time." Murray will forever be the man who ended Britain's 77-year wait for another men's champion. That was in 2013. A second title followed in 2016. With a US Open title also to his name, Murray will sign off as a three-time Grand Slam champion and a double Olympic gold medalist. One of the greats of British sport.
The industrial designer Sir Kenneth Grange has died at the age of 95. His work included fashioning the Kemble chef mixer and helping to create the Kodak instrument camera. Sir Kenneth Grange's proudest achievement was coming up with the Intercity 125 high-speed train in the 1970s, having initially been commissioned by British Rail to help with the painting.
Fiji, thanks very much. With the benefit of hindsight, you think, could we have done more? That was the question asked by the BBC Director General Tim Davie this morning about the treatment of some celebrity contestants on Strictly Come Dancing. He apologised to them, saying he was disappointed to hear that several had complained about abusive behaviour by their dance partners in rehearsals.
I did want to say something about Strictly, which is obviously in the headlines. Strictly is a wonderful show that brings a lot of joy to a lot of people and has done so for 20 years. To both those involved with the show itself and to millions of people at home. Hundreds of people, be they pros, contestants or crew, have been part of it and have a brilliant experience. At the same time, if someone feels there was something wrong that they want to talk about the experience, then of course we want them to raise it at once. And be in no doubt we will take it seriously, listen, and deal with it as appropriate. But while I'm not going to talk about individuals, you can see evidence of that in recent weeks. So I hope that anyone who does want to talk to us feels they can. It is vital, of course, that we have the right protocols and structures in place for the show. We keep these under review, and as you know, we confirmed changes to these last week. It is essential that these are right to everyone. Of course, alongside the fun and entertainment, there will be a degree of competitiveness, hard work, and the will to do well. That's part of what makes the show. But there are limits, and the line should never be crossed. We will never tolerate unacceptable behaviour of any kind. Meanwhile, we do have a brilliant lineup for this year, who I'm sure are itching to get going. And you will hear more about this in the coming weeks.
Tim Davie speaking earlier about the reported treatment of some contestants on Strictly. Among other things, the annual report that was published today revealed that Hugh Edwards was the highest paid BBC News presenter, paid £475,000 last year, despite being off-air and under investigation for most of the year. Another 500,000 people have cancelled their licence fee, and just 69% of those under 16 use the BBC in an average week. Katie Razzle, our culture editor, is here with me in the studio. Katie, let's start with Strictly. Sounds like he was walking a line there, because this is a show that's not going to be cancelled.
I think you're right. I mean, the BBC, it's important to say, has not done an interview since the Strictly story broke, so of course overshadowing his annual report. And there's more than a little bit of irony in this line I spotted in the report, which says the BBC is the place that can get the country talking, whether it's about
reporters at the beginning of this media briefing about Strictly. As you say, Director General Tim Davie apologised. He said he was disappointed when he heard the revelations that the BBC's listening and learning and responding appropriately. I think you're going to hear from Will Bailey in a bit. He's the latest person. This drip of allegations that's clearly really damaging for the BBC. Where does it leave this show that is the BBC's biggest entertainment show in its 20th year? We know rehearsals have already begun, and Tim Davie today said we have a brilliant lineup this year, more about it in the coming weeks. It is worth, I think, pointing out there are more than 60 Strictly spin-offs around the world. They need to make this work in very testing times for the BBC economically. This show has to survive, and clearly the intention is that it does. But with these extra chaperones, duty of care, all the things that they've announced, they'll be hoping that there's no more revelations to come out.
Right. Is it embarrassing that Hugh Edwards is getting paid so much and not on air?
Well, it's an annual staple, isn't it, of the annual report, the salaries. Hugh Edwards, as you said, only worked for 3 months before he was suspended. In that time, he was paid £475,000 for the year, and that was including a £40,000 pay rise. Obviously, the optics of that look bad. It is normal for the BBC to continue to pay people when they're suspended and an investigation is taking place. That's fairness in terms of human resources. But of course, there's questions around whether that can be value for money for the taxpayer. Tim Davie did answer that. He said nobody wants to waste £1, and they wouldn't have wasted the money if they didn't think they were doing the right thing. And when it came to the pay rise, they said he wouldn't talk about any individual, but that people get pay rises in the course of their work doing extra duties.
Katie, thank you very much. Let's turn now to Will Bailey, British professional Paralympic table tennis player, who appeared on Strictly in 2019. Well, good afternoon.
Hello, thank you for having me.
Well, it's very good to talk to you. You had a tough time from the sounds of it.
Yeah, I did. I also, it's really important that everyone listening knows I did actually love it. And my case is so different to everyone else's, so unique. Obviously, mine's sort of not really based around my partner, Jeanette, who I absolutely got on with so well. We had a great time, and there was no issues there. I mean, she was an amazing teacher and leader, and it was fantastic. There were things that basically I said, which was, I think there should have been more sort of understanding for my disability and for what I could do, because this was discussed beforehand. But
there was one particular incident, as I understand it.
Exactly, it was more to learn from these mistakes, which, and it's not like I've jumped on. I think it's really clear that I have to make this clear, because a lot of people Strictly lovers, and there's a lot of them because it's a massive show.
Yeah.
So I jumped on this bandwagon, and that is totally false. I said it. I wrote letters to the BBC. I have personally written letters to the BBC.
So we need to just explain.
Right.
Okay,
Absolutely,
because so what happened with you, and as you say, you said you complained about this, which is why it's not a bandwagon. Is you were asked to jump off a table, you had to do it again to make it livelier, and you hurt yourself quite badly. And I think it was the treatment after that, which is you weren't. It was
a mixture of the two. I mean, to be
Just wondering, you've heard the Director General today. Are you pleased to hear the apology and the?
Yeah, absolutely. I don't think it's directed at me particularly, but whoever it's directed at, that's fantastic. I mean, I did write in. Obviously, I've told you, I've just stated that we wrote in things that could have been improved, and why my injury, hopefully won't happen to anyone, or shouldn't happen to anyone else again if these protocols are taken. But does anyone really take it that seriously? I don't know, to be honest. I mean, does anyone care that much? I don't know, but hopefully things will change. It's really important, isn't it? Because I've got a severe disability, and there are a lot of people with severe disabilities going on the show, which is fantastic. But if you get these people on the show, you also have to keep them safe. And I was an adult when I jumped off the table. I understand that. And most people say, well, you're an adult, you can decide not to jump off the table. But being in the moment, being asked for the first time to jump off a huge table, I was scared, and I didn't really want to back down because I have a certain amount of pride. And I shouldn't have been put in that position. Is that fair enough to say. I think it is.
And I suppose that is, just briefly, where a chaperone, I mean, obviously needed for different things in different circumstances, but might have made a difference
Could
there
have
by
saved
just
me and
saying,
also could have
oh, hang on, well, should you be doing?
Absolutely, would have saved me, would have saved all my anguish, would have saved my disability becoming a lot worse due to my injury. But it is what it is, you know, I've got to move forward, be positive about what can happen in the future and how it can be better.
Well,
I'm not going to get anything out of it, so like, I want people to be protected from the future. I just say how it is, you know. I'm just a Paralympian and I'll be forgotten about, but I don't want anyone
sure
to
you
go
won't,
through
Will.
what I went through.
It's very good to talk to you. Thank you so much for coming on. Well, let's turn to Roger Mosley, who used to be head of TV news and director of sport at the BBC. Good afternoon, Roger. Well, let's start with Strictly, if we may. Do you think that, from the sounds of it, the BBC, that Tim Davies managed to draw a line that they can move on, because they need to really with the size of this show, don't they?
Yes, I think Tim Davies has done the only possible thing, which is to say sorry for what's obviously been a set of bad episodes, and then move on and keep with the show. Because it is, when I worked in BBC television, it always had a reputation as being a very happy show. I've known a lot of people who've been on it, from Natasha Kopinski through to Bill Turnbull and plenty of other people, and it has been a show that most people have really enjoyed being in. But listening to Will just now, I think there is a real concern there about what he was asked to do. And the question I'd be asking is, why wasn't this picked up within the BBC sooner? Because it does sound like the governance and the follow-up each year and asking people how the series have gone wasn't done as effectively as it should be. So I think it's good that they're now come out of the open and the BBC's tackling it.
Right. And that's enough, do you think? I'm just wondering I suppose the question will be if more people come out of the woodwork.
I think all the BBC can do is go forward with what is a show that people love watching, and as long as you can make the training regimes fair and proper. And I think Will's point about disability is absolutely right, that it is good that Strictly is now more inclusive with disability participants. However, you've got to be realistic about what they feel comfortable doing, what everyone feels comfortable doing, because most people in the show have not had any dance training, and recognising therefore you may have a bit more, quote, amateurism there, and it can't all be politically and professional in the way that the producers might sometimes want.
This is all obviously coming out because of the annual report today, and in the annual report there are a number of figures which illustrate the challenge that the BBC has. One is the drop in the number of licence fee payers. 500,000 stopped paying last year, and we think there's about 2.8 million people who refuse to pay their licence fee now. Although there are various reasons that licence fees are cancelled. And also the number of young people, just 69% of Britons under 16 say they consume any BBC content in a week.
Well, look, the BBC is an enormous success story as a public broadcaster, and they're rightly saying that each week 90% of people come to them, 90% over a month, that their audiences are still enormous for the iPlayer and the channels. But there is this existential problem lurking, and that is, as you say, the fact that many people now think, well, actually, we can have Netflix and other streamers without paying the BBC licence fee, and also the fall off in young audiences. And where I think the BBC has a real challenge is to maintain its traditional values, especially in news, and not focus everything on trying to get those difficult younger audiences, while at the same time recognising if young people and what they call hard to reach audiences aren't coming to the BBC, in that case consent for a licence fee risks starting to evaporate.
Right, but what you're seeing here, the numbers